When I stumbled upon a single mom's diary on a bus, I never imagined it would change everything. I'll never forget that moment. The bus screeched to a halt. My heart raced as I stepped in, the air thick with the scent of old seats and spilled coffee. I found a seat near the back, alone among strangers, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on me. That's when I saw it, dark brown, leather-bound, half hidden beneath a torn scarf. My hands trembled as I reached for it. What secrets lay within? No one seemed to notice me. Their faces were glazed over, shrouded in silence. I opened the diary. The pages fluttered like the wings of a trapped bird, revealing swirling script that danced across the page. The words pulled me in, full of raw emotion, hope, and pain. Each entry painted a vivid snapshot of her world, a world weighed down by sleepless nights and unwavering love. She wrote about her son, a bright light in her darker days. I could almost hear her laughter mixed with the hum of the bus. But there was also despair. Words like alone, struggle, and sacrifice jumped off the pages, grabbing at my heart. I felt her pain, her longing. What had she endured? Then, unexpectedly, there it was, a cryptic message. If anyone finds this, please know my secret is my greatest burden. My breath hitched. What secret could be so heavy? I scanned ahead, my mind racing, but the next entry only deepened the mystery. It spoke of a decision that would change everything. Tomorrow, I will face my fears. What fears? What decision? A chill spread through me. I glanced around the bus, heart thudding against my ribcage. The passengers were oblivious, their lives continuing without a hint of the drama unfolding within the pages I clutched. Why was I the one chosen to stumble upon this? In that moment, I felt a tether to this stranger. A single mom battling unseen demons. Who was she? What happened next? I was desperate to know more, my heart pounding with urgency. Just as I was about to turn another page, the bus gave a violent jerk. The driver yelled something about a detour, and a wave of discontent rippled through the bus. I barely noticed, consumed by the words that had ensnared my soul. I was lost in her story when suddenly, she mentioned a name I recognized. An unexpected wave of terror washed over me. Who was this woman? What did I really know about her life? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the bus rattled along the newly appointed route, I fought to regain my composure. The name sprawled across the page: Christine. My pulse quickened. Christine, once a childhood friend, had slipped into a shadowy corner of my memory, long since faded by time and distance. The last I had heard, she'd taken a leap into motherhood, seemingly abandoning our shared dreams for those of her own. But now, here she was, her pen dancing across the pages of a diary that felt impossibly intimate. My heart raced again as I turned back to the entry. What had become of her? I scanned the words fervently, longing for a glimpse into the life she had woven for herself and her child. Every sentence revealed the challenges she faced. The nights spent pacing her small apartment, the burden of single parenting that weighed heavily on her shoulders, and the fleeting moments of joy she clung to like lifebuoys amid a turbulent sea. Yet one line struck me violently: if only I could find the courage to leave. What was she contemplating leaving? My instinct to protect her surged. The diary became not just a lifeline into her world but a compass pointing to the depths of her struggles. I could almost feel her heart, pounding in rhythm with mine, echoing a desperate plea for compassion that transcended the pages. With every stop the bus made, more passengers boarded, their conversations swirling around me like a fog. I continued reading, oblivious to the buzz of voices, spiraling further into Christine's life, a life decorated with small victories and thick with disappointment. The boy deserves better than this, she had written. He deserves love, peace, a stable home. My heart ached for her child. For Christine. In a world so often clouded by judgment, here was a woman willing to unravel herself to be a better mother. And yet, loneliness clawed at her, coaxing tears to the corners of my eyes. Just as I began to feel a small glimmer of hope, an entry wrenched my heart anew. She described an encounter with someone, a man, it appeared, who offered her the support she craved, yet she recoiled at his kindness. Why would anyone want to help a failure like me? She wrote. No. I whispered, as if I could reach through the paper and soothe her doubts. She was not a failure. She was fighting a battle many couldn't begin to fathom. Suddenly, the bus jolted again, halting abruptly at a red light. My thoughts were interrupted as I stole a glance at the scattered passengers. An elderly woman sat directly across from me, her eyes catching mine. A flicker of understanding exchanged between us. She smiled gently, nodding as if she too comprehended the weight of the diary. In that moment, I felt a small flicker of shared humanity, a collective struggle to keep afloat in our respective lives. Then came a change. As the light turned green and the bus rolled forward, an alluring idea sprouted in my mind. What if I could find Christine? My heart soared with the possibility. A strange surge of determination flooded my veins. I could connect with her, help her to see her worth. But the weight of my own unresolved feelings tugged at the edges of my resolve, whispering doubts that threatened to undermine my newfound hope. The sharp, sudden ring of my phone cut through my thoughts, pulling me back to the moment. The familiar name flashing on the screen, the one I had not seen in years. A sense of dread washed over me. Why now? My fingers trembled as I answered, "Hey. It's been a while. I heard you might be back in town." It was Elise, our childhood friend, with an unfamiliar tone, light and tinged with concern. "Yeah, I'm well, sort of," I stammered, glancing down at the diary resting securely in my lap. "I'm just a bit caught up with something that I said about Christine." She pressed, surprisingly intuitive. "I've been hearing things." My heart dropped. Did she know? How much had spread through the fragile web of our lives? A lump formed in my throat as I wrestled with how to respond. "What do you mean? You really need to talk to her." I think you might be her last shot." Suddenly, the words felt like a reckless dare, stirring emotions I wasn't prepared to tackle. Did she already know about Christine's struggles? Or what was to come? The bus rolled forward, the world outside peeling away like a film, time suspended just long enough for the message to sink in. "You're the only one she believes in anymore," Elisa's voice echoed in my mind. Damn, my heart pounded at the revelation, and the weight of Christine's secret, the burden that had drawn me into her orbit, now felt like a tether I couldn't sever even if I wanted to. Should I reach out or hold my distance? As the bus approached its next stop, the air thickened with uncertainty, and I clutched the diary tighter. Could I be the kind of friend she needed? Or was I merely an amateur stumbling through a labyrinth of her truth? As I stepped off the bus, a shadow flitted past my vision, someone in the crowd. I turned, and my heart dropped. The figure resembled Christine. Our eyes locked for a fraction of a moment, before she disappeared into the throng. And just like that, the path I had hoped to navigate twisted away from me, leaving only questions and the crushing weight of unanswered secrets behind. The air buzzed with the din of city life, but I felt as if I had stepped into a dream where time slowed. My head spun, the ghost of Christine evaporating like mist in the sunlight. It was as if I had glimpsed a part of her soul and, just like that, it had been whisked away. I scanned the crowd, heart racing, desperately seeking any sign of her long mane or familiar features. Yet all I found were the indifferent faces of strangers, each consumed by their own lives. That I stepped back, leaning against the cool metal of the bus stop, feeling the pulse of the city thrumming through my veins. My determination to reach Christine clawed at me. This wasn't just a childhood friend, this was a woman at her breaking point, a mother wrestling with the weight of her decisions. For all the years we had been apart, I felt the connection loom larger than ever, bridging the gap of time and silence between us. Clenching the diary, I caught glimpses of passerby interactions, an old man helping a young girl tie her shoelaces, a couple sharing quiet laughter over coffee. Each moment seemed tinged with a softness I could hardly fathom as my own heart twisted with the lonely bites of regret. If only I could harbor a fraction of that kindness, a sliver of courage, to reach out beyond my growing fears. That I pivoted on my toes, half expecting to see her again. The bus was departing, the engine sputtering into something that felt like defeat, and I inhaled deeply, summoning whatever bravery I could muster. I needed to talk to her, to tell her that I was here, that she wasn't alone. But where to begin? My phone buzzed again, another notification flashing across the screen. It was a text from Elise. "You have to do it. She needs you. Don't wait too long." That I was paralyzed, torn between the overwhelming desire to be that source of comfort and the haunting thoughts that propped up my insecurities. What if I got it wrong? What if my reappearance ignited old wounds instead of healing? A lump formed in my throat as I toyed with the idea of just calling her, but how could I? The last time we spoke was nearly a decade ago, and things had changed so much since then. Would she even remember me? I turned my head, scanning again, perhaps wishing I might will her back into sight. But reality only met me with more relentless set shadows. With a sudden burst of resolve, I slipped into a coffee shop across the street. The air was filled with the inviting aromas of freshly brewed coffee and pastries, decadent delights that momentarily distracted me from my turmoil. As I ordered a cup of the darkest brew, I imagined how Christine might appreciate the warmth of the mug in her hands, how much I wanted to share that simple pleasure with her. Amongst lighter memories, cradling the steaming cup, I found a small seat by the window, sipping slowly, allowing the caffeine and sensation of bustling life to settle around me. Every sip was a bittersweet reminder of the silence that had settled like a fog between Christine and me. I pulled the diary from my bag, deciding to reread her words in hopes of extracting the thread that could lead me back to her. Desperation ebbed and flowed like the tide, a gentle but persistent ache driving me. Pages turned, some worn and frayed, until I stumbled upon a passage that brought a new wave of heartache lapping at my heels. Every day, I pray for the strength to be enough. But am terrified of failing him. What if I hurt him like I've hurt myself? Those lines cut deep. I allowed the pain she felt to wash over me, trembling at the weight of her fears. Failure. That word resonated like a gut punch, echoing far too closely to my own childhood memories, the ones I'd buried beneath layers of unfulfilled dreams and unspoken regrets. Deep down, I wanted to tell her she was enough, to convince her that perfection was a facade, a burden woven from the fabric of expectation. Suddenly, I felt eyes piercing into me. I looked up, feeling exposed under the scrutiny, and met the concerned gaze of a barista who had approached me unobtrusively. She had young eyes, a softness lingering in her expression. "Are you all right?" she asked gently. The question caught me off guard, but before I could respond, she continued, "You seem lost in thought. I've been there too, you know. It gets overwhelming sometimes." That I in that brief moment, an unexpected connection blossomed like the encouragement Christine lacked but craved. I nodded, forcing a smile. I hesitated, wrestling with the urge to share my truth. "I'm thinking about a friend, someone I care about, sometimes sharing helps," she replied sincerely, her voice oozing with compassion. "Maybe you could write her a note or something, just to let her know you're thinking of her." The suggestion struck me, perhaps a letter could bridge that chasm. A tangible gesture amidst the uncertainty, a way to reach out without the pressure of a face-to-face confrontation. What would I say? Would my words be a lifeline or a reminder of what she felt she could never achieve? My heart swelled with hope as I envisioned the letter flowing from my pen, a swirl of encouragement and compassion inviting her to seek help and not fear my presence. The barista smiled softly as she turned away, and I plucked a napkin from the counter, determined to put my thoughts into motion. Yet, as I began to write, my heart dropped once more. A crash echoed from outside, a pulse of chaos cutting through the moment. Instinctively, I ran to the glass door, peering out into the overcast day. My breath caught in my throat. People were pointing, shouting, and the scene unveiled a terrible sight. A police car was parked crookedly across the street, lights flashing. A crowd began to gather, their expressions warped by fear and curiosity. In the midst of it all, someone stepped forward, pushing through the throng someone that looked strikingly familiar. Anxiety swept over me. It was Christine. She looked terrified, as if the world around her had crumbled in an instant. That I could feel warmth flood my cheeks, an instinctive urge to reach out boiling within as my pen slipped from my grasp. The diary, now open beside me, lay still and silent, holding tightly the unearthed secrets of her soul, and before I could process what I was witnessing, an officer stepped toward her with urgency while the crowd held its breath, anticipation thickening the air. A single thought pierced through the storm within me: was Christine in danger? I made my move, pushing through the scattering crowd, my heart racing not just with fear for her, but with the heavy conviction that I was about to step into a moment that would irrevocably change everything for both of us. The crowd swirled around like a chaotic whirlpool, each face reflecting a different shade of concern and curiosity. My grasp on the diary faltered, the sensation of its edges pressing into my palms grounding me with the weight of urgency. Christina's silhouette shimmered through the chaos, a beacon amid the storm. I pushed through the throng, each step echoing a desperate yearning, fighting the tide of onlookers who fixated on the unfolding scene. Christine. I shouted, a word that felt woven with hope and fear, intertwining into a fragile thread. The officer seemed to be asking her questions, his expression poised yet demanding. Christine's eyes, wide and luminous, darted toward me, recognition flaring briefly before being swallowed by a fog of panic. When our eyes met, the world dimmed, and in that heartbeat, everything else fell away. I was no longer a stranger in a busy city. I was a lifeline. I surged forward, finding a spot just outside the circle of authority. "It's me, it's Jacob." I called out, attempting to sound more reassuring than I felt. She looked toward me, a mix of rejection and longing twisting her features. "I don't know what to do," she murmured, her voice barely breaking through the noise. The officer continued to probe her for information, yet it felt as though we were both ensnared in a web too thick to navigate. I stepped farther into the crowded rectangle created by their presence, determination coursing through me. With every heartbeat, I reminded myself, she needed help, but perhaps more than that, she needed me to be there. "Can you take a breath, Christine?" I urged softly, trying to project calmness into her storm. The mere act of saying her name felt monumental. It broke through the veil of time that had separated us. "You're not alone." After what felt like an eternity, she nodded slightly, her fear refracted in the hesitance of her eyes. The officer stepped back, sensing my presence, and I took that as my cue. I pushed forward, right into the chaotic sanctuary of the moment. "Can we talk?" I asked, voice steady though trembling inside, the world around us fading into a muted backdrop. "Jacob?" She whispered, disbelief mingling with relief. It was as if the air between us had tightened into a fragile tether, something real in a whirlpool of uncertainty. "How did you?" Her voice cracked, fighting against the enormity of the situation. "Later," I said, urgency bleeding into my tone. "Right now, we need to make sure you're all right." "What's happening?" Christine shivered, drawing her arms around herself like she could ward off the world. They think I can't take care of myself or Liam," she stammered, her hands trembling. "They want to talk to the school. I'm so scared, Jacob." I never wanted it to come to this. The sheer weight of her words suffocated me. She was fighting a battle far beyond what I had anticipated. It reached deep into the roots of her pain and insecurities. And here I was, standing before her, a ghost from her past, unprepared for the enormity of the moment. What if I can't? Her breath hitched, raw vulnerability spilling out into the chaos around us, drenched in uncertainty. "What if they take him away?" "No," I promised, forcing back a tide of despair that threatened to drown me. "You are strong, Christine. You're fighting for him, and that's what matters. We will figure this out together." At that moment, she looked so small, a child consumed by the shadows of her fears. A pulse of tenderness surged through me. It was unfamiliar yet resolute. I reached out, my fingers brushing against her arm, and she flinched, caught off guard but not withdrawing. "I've missed you," I whispered, trembling to bridge the chasm that had grown between us. I shouldn't have stayed away. The officer cleared his throat, seemingly uncomfortable with the emotion laid bare before him. Miss, if you're in need of assistance, I can arrange for a social worker. No, Christine interrupted, firming her spine despite the tremor of her voice. I just need time to breathe. I want to talk to him. She meant me, and I felt buoyed by the significance of her request. Okay, I said, almost reverently. Let's find somewhere private. That in a move almost instinctive, I took her by the wrist, mindful of her need for space, and steered her away from the circle of officers. We headed to a small park nearby, the quiet stretch of grass offering a contrast to the frenetic energy that had enveloped us. The city hummed in the background, but here, there was stillness. Once at the edge, we sat on a bench under a sprawling oak tree, its branches like arms ready to shelter us from the weight of reality. I stole glances at Christine as she stared straight ahead, the fear palpable in her silence. Finally, the moment hung thick with the truth between us. It's been a long time, hasn't it? I ventured. She nodded, tears gathering in her eyes, unshed hurt radiating from her every feature. I didn't want to burden you, she said hoarsely, shaking her head. I was afraid of what? Of failing you again. Her admission struck me like a thunderclap. Christine, you could never fail me. You were the one who had always believed in me. You need to allow yourself some grace, to accept that you can't do everything. It's okay to lean on someone, I urged gently, my heart aching for her. But her fear clung tight, suffocating every hopeful thread. It feels like I'm losing him, losing everything, Jacob. How can I keep going? Before I could draft a comforting response, a commotion erupted from the entrance of the park. A man burst through the flurry of trees, his expression frantic. My heart sank as I recognized him, Christine. He called out, and the world twisted. It was Liam's father, someone from her past whom I'd only heard about. A man I knew had already compounded her struggles with choices that had distanced him from his family. Christine turned, her expression quickly morphing from fear to what I could only describe as a fight-or-flight instinct. No. She squeaked, panic coloring her voice. My heart raced, the reality of our conversation hanging in the air like an uninvited shadow. Please, don't, she whispered, terror gripping her throat as he approached. The enemy had returned, and all of the emotions we'd been wrestling with began to flare back to life. I could feel Christine's vulnerability clashing against my instinct to protect her, an electric surge hinting at the conflict about to unravel. As I stood, poised to confront the looming thundercloud above us, I knew that this was just the beginning of a confrontation that would shatter everything we'd fought for or perhaps ignite the spark of a new beginning. Either way, a storm was brewing, and neither of us was ready for the tempest that was about to unleash. The weight of uncertainty clung to the air as Liam's father barreled toward us, his desperation manifesting in a frenzied urgency that felt oppressive. My heart thudded against my chest, a drumbeat of protective instinct roaring to life, threatening all the fragile hope we had just shared. Christine. He shouted again, his voice raw and unsteady, carrying with it an echo of the past that I had yet to fully comprehend. I could see the war within her torn between her past, the now, and the future she so desperately wanted to protect. Stay back. I interjected, stepping slightly in front of her, a physical barrier against a tide I knew was complicated and messy. Christine deserved that much. She shouldn't have to face the wreckage of her life without someone at her side. Who the hell are you? He sneered, eyes narrowing as they darted between us. There was a flash of recognition in his expression when they landed on Christine, and it turned to disgust, as if he found the mere sight of her an affront. Just someone who cares, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. You need to leave her alone. The air crackled with tension, a charged moment where everything hung in the balance. Christine's eyes flitted to me, uncertainty layered over the vulnerability that had bloomed between us only moments before. It was a look that screamed for solace amidst the chaos, and my gut twisted at the thought of what upheaval he represented. That I have a right to see my son, he growled, his chest heaving with indignation. Liam is not an object, Christine replied fiercely, pushing past my protective stance. He is a child who needs a stable home, not a battlefield. You don't get to dismantle that just because it's convenient for you. I felt a surge of respect for her fierce defiance, a raw strength that underscored the torment she had endured while battling not just for herself, but for Liam. But I also recognized the undercurrent of fear in her voice, a trembling leaf tossed in a storm. The man seemed unhinged, his emotions brushing the line of volatility. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not fit to raise him. You need help. His accusations were venomous, each word another dagger aimed at her already fragile confidence. Stop, I interrupted, raising my hand slightly as if to physically push against his words. We don't need to do this like this. Let's talk like adults. Enough of this, he shouted, waving his hands as if he could ward off the truth in Christine's statement. His cheeks flushed, anger vibrating off him in waves. Jacob, she whispered, her voice strained. I turned back, and for a fleeting moment, our eyes locked, understanding passing between us. In that brief silence, despite the explosive tension, hope flickered like a candle struggling against the wind. Liam needs a mother, not a courtroom, I said firmly, hoping to quell the raging tempest of his fury. This is not the way to handle things, you don't understand. He barked, each syllable a sledgehammer against the walls we'd built. She's a disaster, and I won't allow her to drag my son down with her. Christine flinched at his words, each syllable leaving bruises on her heart that I could see reflected in her eyes. It ignited an anger in me that tempered the fear pooling in the pit of my stomach. Stop it. I snapped, my voice rising. She's doing her best. You may not see it, but she's fighting for her son, against all odds, fighting. He scoffed derisively, shaking his head as if my words were just a bothersome fly. You call this a fight? She's a liability. You're all talking about what's best for her, but at what cost to Liam? The truth of his words hung uncomfortably between us, like a pendulum swinging ominously. Every fight had consequences, and I understood that while Christine was now harboring Liam, the danger of losing him was ever present. Please, Christine said quietly now, her strength diminished. Just let me be a mom, let me try. I'm not asking for perfection, just a chance. Your chance has already ended, he hissed, glancing at me with disdain. I won't let you ruin my child's life. This ends. Today, every breath felt like a battle, tension seeping into the space between us with each cruel statement he tossed her way. Christine's shoulders drooped, and I could sense her defeat creeping back in, a dark cloud threatening to engulf her once more. That I had to do something. You can't just walk in here and dictate her life, I said, my voice steady, but inside I trembled with the realization of how fragile control truly was. You want to be involved? Prove it. Show her she can rely on you. Show Liam you're capable. Let's work together. For a moment, silence enveloped us, as if every soul within the park had paused to witness our standoff. I felt the weight of Christine's gaze on me, a flicker of hope creeping back into her tired eyes, but it was undercut by a heavy dose of doubt. You think you can play hero? Liam's father sneered, his condescending tone a dagger aimed at my heart. You have no idea what kind of demons she's dealing with. You'll regret it. I can promise you that, maybe, I replied, my voice edged with resolve, but I'd rather fight for her and Liam than do nothing at all. A thick air of conflict loomed, yet beneath the tension lay strands of connection and untapped determination. But as Liam's father considered his next move, a thought dashed through my mind, a worry, a flicker of fear. What if this was just the beginning of a war that neither of us could win? And just as the first signs of hope ignited within Christina's gaze, a sobering truth washed over me: the specter of defeat was still very real. What would you do if you lost him? I challenged, eyeing him evenly. What if this was about your fight? Your life? The moment derailed, an electric hush embracing the park as Liam's father trembled, fists clenching at his sides, uncertainty flickering across his reaction, an unexpected chink in his armor. As I stared into his eyes, I sensed a storm of conflicting emotions swirling beneath that bravado. But before I could analyze it further, a sudden outburst from nearby onlookers distracted us both, breaking the bubble of confrontation. I turned instinctively, my guard raised, heart racing with unease. What now? People began pulling out their phones, gasps echoing around as a figure emerged from the shadows near the park's entrance. My pulse quickened. The newly cast figure stepped into the light, and I froze in disbelief that it was someone from my past, someone I never expected to see again, and their presence sent a shockwave of tension rippling through both the park and my thoughts. A revelation that could change everything. Jacob, they called out, voice echoing as they approached, a heavy undercurrent threading through their tone. I've been looking for you. The realization sent an icy grip around my heart. In that single moment, the fragile thread of hope anchored between Christine and me felt precariously close to snapping, all while new complications threatened to unravel the very fabric of our fragile alliance. Everything I thought I understood was now in jeopardy, and I was left with the weight of uncertainty. Could this moment lead to salvation, or would it tear apart everything we had just begun to rebuild? The sunlight was fading, casting long shadows across the park as the figure drew closer. My heart pounded in my chest, a wild drum alerting me to the confusion and tumult that had just materialized. I blinked, trying to wrap my mind around the presence of this person, someone whose past connection to me stirred a whirlpool of memories and emotions. Jacob, they said again, breaking the silence that hung, taut and unyielding, between us. I knew that voice all too well, a voice steeped in familiarity and regret, a reminder of choices I had made that still echoed painfully in my mind. I didn't think I'd find you here. The crowd around us had shifted from tense observers to intrigued bystanders. Their eyes darted between the confrontation we'd been embroiled in and the new arrival, who now stood like a specter from a time I'd buried deep. It felt surreal. In one moment, I was fighting for Christine, fighting against an approaching storm, and now I was confronted with a ghost from my past, seeking something I couldn't yet understand. My throat felt dry, words failing me as I tried to process the implications of their presence. How could they show up now, when everything was already on the edge of chaos? What were they doing here, and why now? I stammered, unclear of how to navigate this unexpected reintroduction. My gaze shifted back to Christine, whose face reflected a blend of confusion and concern. She deserved clarity, security, all the things I hadn't been able to provide. Is this your friend? Liam's father interjected, the disdain dripping from his voice as he assessed the situation, keenly aware of the turmoil surrounding us. You've been playing hero, and someone from your past shows up to derail everything. Looks like quite the mess, doesn't it? I clenched my fists, pushing back against the mounting pressure in the air. This is not the time, I shot back, annoyance slipping through the cracks of my facade. What do you want? I turned my attention back to the visitor, desperate to find some logic in their sudden appearance. They hesitated, eyes flickering between me and the tension radiating from Christine and her former husband. I know this is unexpected, but I need to talk to you. It's important. Christina's gaze bore into me, filled with unspoken questions, worry painted across her features. I could see her trembling slightly, struggling against the tide of uncertainty surrounding her. Jacob, who is this? She asked quietly, her voice barely rising above a whisper but laced with urgency. Someone from my past, I replied, trying to maintain control over my emotions. But that's not the priority right now. I know what you're trying to do, the figure said, their tone more pointed, more determined. But I wouldn't have come looking for you if it wasn't serious. There are things you need to understand, things regarding Liam. The name hung in the air, reverberating through all of us like an alarm. My heart lurched. What do you mean? One of the onlookers had pulled out their phone, recording the unfolding drama as tension swirled heavier above us. The world had become a spectacle, and I desperately wanted to pull Christine and myself away from it, to shield us from the prying eyes of everyone witnessing our unraveling story. Just can we step aside? Somewhere private? They requested, intensity coloring their voice. A hardened expression crossed their face, accentuating the urgency of their plea. That I am not leaving her alone, I stated firmly, my thumb gesturing toward Christine, who stood a few steps back, uncertainty written all over her features. I wanted to stand beside her, a fortress against the chaos brewing around us. Jacob, please. This affects her too, the figure pleaded, nerves creeping into their voice. I promise. This is bigger than whatever is happening right now with Liam's father. Biggest matters hung on the precipice of revelation. I could sense it, feel it suffocating the air as we stood there, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Christina's hand trembled slightly, and I knew she was holding on to hope but also fear. She needed stability, now more than ever. Just tell me what you know, I demanded, my patience fraying as disbelief bubbled beneath the surface. Don't make me ask you again, the figure sighed, and the weight of their revelation seemed as if it could crack the ground beneath our feet. Liam Isha's not just the son of Christine and the man standing in front of you. There's more to it. I can't explain everything here, but Liam deserves to know what. I interjected, frustration lacerating through me. What's bigger than this? The shadows continued to spill over the park, drawing closer as the sunlight waned. And as if sensing the darkness encroaching on our fragile hope, something flickered in their eyes, a torment so deep it twisted my gut. He has a right to choose who he wants to be with, the figure said, their voice breaking slightly. And you need to be ready for what that entails. He may not be the son you think he is. A wave of realization crashed over me, scattering my thoughts like leaves in a tempest. What could they possibly mean? The intangible fear clenched tighter around my heart. The park faded away as sharp dread clawed at my mind. What do you mean by that? I gasped, desperate to push back against the revelation that was threatening to reshuffle all the pieces I had fought so hard to stabilize, but the vibrations of uncertainty had reached a critical mass, and the tension spiraled. Just as answers loomed on the horizon, reality unraveled, leaving only a gaping chasm of confusion. The shadows deepened, and as the figures of shattered trust and hidden truths swirled around us, I knew we were standing on the brink of a storm that could break everything we had begun to piece together. The chill of the evening air wrapped around us like a heavy blanket, thick with unspoken words and unresolved fears. I could feel every heartbeat resonate in the silence, a drum echoing the uncertainty that hung between us. The last rays of sunlight surrendered to the encroaching shadows as I stood there, brimming with questions and unable to grasp the enormity of the revelation I had just heard. Christina's expression shifted, confusion melted into a mixture of terror and a burning desire to protect Liam. My heart ached at the sight of her anguish. She deserved clarity, context, peace after the storm we had been thrust into. But what this figure had just dropped in our laps threatened to shatter what little stability we had fought to construct. Let's not make this a public scrutiny, I finally said, my voice steadier than I felt. Let's find a place to talk. The tension was palpable as we moved off the park's main path, seeking a quiet corner draped in the shadows of autumn leaves, and away from prying eyes. With every step, the gravity of the moment weighed heavier on my chest. I hadn't realized how desperately I wanted to know the truth until it danced tantalizingly out of reach, hidden behind this specter of my past. The figure, who had started this unraveling, was soon to become our unwitting guide into the labyrinth of secrets and lies that had threaded through our lives unnoticed. Once settled near a bench sheltered by branches, I turned to face them. How do you know all of this? Who are you? I questioned, anger fueling my resolve. My irritation was not directed at them alone, but rather at the tangled web of fate that had brought us all here. At this moment that I am someone who has known Liam longer than you, they replied, voice thick with emotion. I didn't come here just to throw stones, I came to warn you. Liam deserves to know the truth, but he also deserves to decide for himself who he wants to be in all of this. He needs you to support that, whatever it might mean. A shiver ran through me as their words echoed. I could feel the weight of those sentiments pressing against me, swelling beneath the surface like a rising tide threatening to drag us under. What truth? I felt raw, vulnerable. What do you mean he's not who I think he is? The figure hesitated, searching for the right words amid a swell of emotion that seemed to rise from deep within. Liam, he knows things about his family, about the circumstances of his birth. Things you may not even be privy to. Christine clasped her hands tightly, knuckles white as denial flickered across her face. No, that can't be true. He's my son, my only son, she muttered fiercely, stepping closer to me, a tether to solid ground. You need to clarify this, Mom. It's okay. A new voice broke through the suffocating tension, sending shockwaves through us. We turned simultaneously, startled to find Liam standing there, having approached quietly and unnoticed amidst the rising tempest of revelation. "Liam!" Christine exclaimed, her voice a mixture of relief and fear. I sensed her instincts kicking in, desperately wishing to shield him from the storm we were caught in. "This isn't a conversation for you right now. Please, just go home," but he stepped forward confidently, eyes sharp as glass. "No, Mom, I need to know what's going on. Why does it feel like everyone is hiding something from me? Who is this person and what do they mean about me?" An electric silence followed, stinging with the tension held in the space between the four of us. Liam's presence felt like a beacon amidst the chaos. He was our anchor. But he was also the spark that could ignite this entire situation. "That I need you to trust me, Liam," I began, my heart racing as I searched for the right way to protect him from the storm gathering above our heads. "There are things from our pasts that need to be addressed, but it's tell me the truth." His voice, void of a child's anxiety and resistant to the urge to hide from the tumult, demanded my full attention. No more half answers. The figure exchanged a glance with me, urgency painted on their features. There was a swirling torrent of pain and hope in Liam's eyes, and I could sense an awakening of understanding that he might not be ready for. "Liam," I began, cautiously. "The person standing here, they believe you deserve to know the truth about your birth." The moment hung precariously in the air as every heartbeat seemed to stretch. The air felt dense, and I knew I'd crossed a threshold that shattered the fragile sense of security we had built. "What about my birth?" Liam challenged boldly, a mixture of confusion and defiance coursing through him. Suddenly, just as the gravity of what was being unveiled sat heavy in the air, the figure took a deep breath, leaning in closer. "You were adopted, Liam," they revealed, their voice barely above a whisper, trembling with the impact of the words spoken. "Your birth mother, she didn't just disappear, she was a part of something much bigger, something you may not be aware of yet. You have family who are looking for you." Like a slackening bowstring, the twist of surprise and uncertainty culminated as I watched Liam's demeanor shift. The world around us blurred into insignificance as the truth hung in the air like a dark cloud pregnant with rain. His expression morphed from disbelief to shock as uncertainty writhed like venom coursing through his veins, while Christine instinctively reached for him, her eyes wide with horror at the revelation that was tearing us all apart. The storm had broken, and we were left standing in the aftermath, unsure of what lay ahead, only that the path from here forward was twisted with branches of uncharted territory. The bus rocked gently as it veered around a corner, and I found myself gripping the metal pole, my heart hammering with the frantic cadence of the day's revelations. Strangers sat around, eyes glued to screens or lost in their thoughts, yet all I could focus on was the weight of what had just been unearthed. The truth about Liam's birth reverberated in my mind, a bitter echo amidst the chaos of my emotions. Liam's face haunted me, his initial shock morphing into something resembling anger. I had seen a flicker of betrayal in his eyes, a sense of being stripped bare by the truth. I couldn't help but wonder if I had made the right choice by pushing him into this storm. Had he been better off not knowing? Was there even a way to protect him from what came next? I caught a glimpse of Christina's reaction too, standing just behind Liam like a failing shield, clutching her arms around herself. Fear and uncertainty flickered in her eyes as she faced the reality that her son was not just another boy in the neighborhood, was a link to a past drenched in mystery. The heaviness of this moment was palpable, and the bus moved almost absently, gliding through a fog thick with unawareness. I thought of everything I cared about: Liam, Christine, and the fragile space we had managed to carve out together amidst the chaos of life. Suddenly, without fail, something shifted in the air. A pair of teenage girls entered the bus, giggling and chattering in front of me. One of them, with an infectious smile, yielded an open notebook that she had been cradling tightly. My eyes caught slight glimpses of its pages, scrawled with heartfelt thoughts, doodles, and hopes, words soaring like seeds released into the wind. In that moment, I was reminded of the power of words, the nuances they could bring, the understanding they could foster if shared openly. As the girls settled down, the laughter around me felt like an invitation to breathe amid chaos. I pondered how love could emerge from unexpected places, carrying whispers of hope. Even now, the sound of their laughter faded when another girl nudged the notebook back. "Show the world you're simply you," she said, laughter cut short, replaced by a solemn whisper. The girl with the notebook frowned and flipped the pages before she closed it tightly. Something about that exchange resonated, sparking a flicker of inspiration that hidden beneath the layers of fear and uncertainty encasing my heart. Without fully realizing how it began, I reached into my pocket, my fingers brushing across the crumpled receipts that seemed to pile up like remnants of fractured memories. But tucked away beneath them was a small journal I'd been keeping, a place for my own tangled thoughts. I had written page after page, sometimes scribbling with clarity, other times with despair. It was a testament to my struggles, to the love I had for this makeshift family and the fear that threatened to engulf it that I flipped it open to a fresh page, the pristine white waiting for the upheavals of my heart to spread across it like ink bleeding into water. I felt the drumbeat of necessity in my chest, a need to document our unfolding story, the struggles faced, and the love that somehow managed to shine through the cracks in our hearts. As I started to write, a thought flickered through my mind: what if Liam, too, had a voice? What if he needed a spacito process everything, to explore what this truth meant to him? A journal could be more than just ink on paper, it could be a bridge, a conduit for connection as formidable as a lifeboat navigating through the storms of our lives. With newfound determination, I resolved to talk to Christine about an idea that could allow Liam a path to unpack his emotions without the constraints of our world pressing down on him. I painted pictures in my mind of Liam freely letting his voice lead him down the pages, unraveling what it meant to be adopted, and setting himself free from the weight of expectation. But even as hope flickered, apprehension knotted in my stomach. What if Christine saw it differently? What if the idea of Liam embarking on this emotional journey filled their home with even more tension? And what if exposing his thoughts only led him to unearth further pain and confusion? The gentle rumble of the bus wheels faded to the background as I juggled these conflicting emotions within me. The world around us may have felt shrouded in darkness, but moments of light peeked through the gloom, a kaleidoscope of perspectives emerging, offering small bursts of kindness. As the bus lurched to a stop, I blinked back the tides of uncertainty that swelled once more. I stepped off, my heart racing with an idea that now felt imperative. I would talk to Christine as soon as we got home, sharing the vision I had for Liam that might allow him to channel the chaos of his unfolding identity into something tangible. But just as I stepped off the bus, a commotion erupted nearby. A shout pierced through the air as a man ran past me, weaving through the crowd as if pursued. In his hands, something glimmered under the fading light, something precious, something dark, something a small, ivory pendant marked with an unfamiliar crest. I hesitated. The world suddenly narrowed down to that pendant, my heart thumping. It felt as if it was somehow connected to everything, as if it held a key of its own to unravel the murky secrets surrounding Liam's identity. Before I could shift back into the fleeting reality of the moment and piece together the puzzle unfurling before me, the man vanished into the throng, and I was left standing there, gripped not by fear, but by a pull sharp with curiosity. The cycles of truth and connection continued to weave around us, threads of stories yet to be told hanging just out of reach. Caught between hope and uncertainty, a new resonance thrummed. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but it felt like the ground beneath my feet was slowly shifting, the tension growing stronger and more palpable. Something was about to erupt, and I could not shake the sense that I was on the cusp of a much larger unfolding. The air felt electric, charged with the remnants of uncertainty and new possibilities. As I took a hesitant step away from the scene, the weight of the glimmering pendant's memory firmly lodged in my mind. I glanced around, the faces of the strangers on the street seeming to blur into a tableau of normalcy, starkly contrasting with the tempest swirling inside me. I hurried home, my thoughts a chaotic symphony of Liam's face and the silhouette of that man disappearing into the crowd. What did the pendant mean? What secrets did it cradle? And how was it entwined with Liam's past? The questions chased each other relentlessly, hounding my every step. As I approached our front door, I took a steadying breath. If I couldn't decipher the mystery of the pendant right now, perhaps I could focus on what I wanted to create for Liam. I had envisioned sharing the journal idea with Christine, but the urgency of the pendant's implications gnawed at me. What if there were other elements, hidden pieces of history waiting to resurface along with the truth? Hey! Christine called from the kitchen, her voice slicing through the ruminating cacophony of my mind. Just wrapping up dinner. The smell wafted toward me, a familiar comfort anchored in the chaos. I stepped inside, greeted by the warm glow of kitchen lights, but the sense of solace I usually found there felt frayed at the edges. Christine appeared, brushing flour from her hands, her eyes searching for the connection that had somehow frayed between us since Liam discovered the truth. "Everything okay?" she asked, her brow furrowed slightly. I hesitated. "Yeah. Just saw something on my way back." The words spilled out heavy with unexplained burden. Christina's eyes flickered with concern, but before she could pry further, Liam bounded in, his footsteps hurried, energy bouncing off him like static. His cheeks were flushed, and he was clutching something tightly in his hand, a drawing, vibrant and chaotic, speckled with colors that danced wildly across the page. "Check this out," he exclaimed, his enthusiasm infectious. But beneath the surface excitement, I caught a glimpse of something darker, a flicker of unresolved emotions lurking just beneath his vibrant exterior. "What's this?" Christine asked, her smile faltering as she leaned closer to see. "Just my feelings, I guess," Liam shrugged, biting his lip as he fiddled nervously with the paper. "It's just how I'm feeling since, well, you know." My heart sank. He was trying to articulate what he felt, but it was a heavy burden to carry, and I could see the struggle mirrored in his fidgety hands. I risked a glance at Christine, silently admitting to her that perhaps my idea of the journal would not only be helpful, but a source of salvation. "Can I help you with your feelings?" Christina's voice was gentle, like a soft touch against the tempest raging inside Liam. "We can talk about anything, buddy." Liam hesitated, glancing between us, but didn't say a word about the drawing. My chest tightened, I could feel the tension crackling like an unlit fuse. "Why don't you keep it, Liam?" I suggested softly. "You could write more about it or draw more things that come to mind. Maybe we can even take turns sharing with each other. It could be like our own little club." This time, the flicker in his eyes grew, sparked with curiosity mixed with apprehension. "A club? With just us? What about everything else?" Christine and I exchanged knowing looks, and I felt relief wash over me. Could this be a step toward healing? Despite the fears encasing us, maybe we could weather this together, just us for now, I assured him, my voice steady. "Just a space to process things, to figure them out without judgment. We can take it slow." "Okay." Liam smiled shyly, a hint of surprise coloring his face. "I think I could do that." The air had shifted, heavy with the promise of small victories and fragile hopes. At that moment, as we began to navigate this new territory together, I felt a flicker of connection, an anchor holding us steady amid the uncertainties that swirled beyond our walls. But then, the moment was punctuated by a loud crash from the front door, followed by shouting. My heart sank, instincts firing off alarms. I darted to the window, pulling the curtain aside with trembling fingers. My breath caught in my throat. There, illuminated in a streetlight, was the same man, his eyes wild, clutching the very pendant I had seen before. "Stop him!" A voice yelled from the shadows, echoing the sirens wailing in the distance. Panic surged through me as I turned to Christine and Liam, their faces frozen in shock. All rationality fled, replaced by a frantic urgency. "We need to hide!" I shouted, my heart racing as I ushered them toward the back of the house, and in that chilling moment, as we pressed ourselves against the cool wall, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me. We had barely begun to stitch the fragments of our lives back together, and now it felt as if the pieces would scatter once more in a tempest far beyond our control. The door rattled, and I could hear footsteps thundering towards us. Time slowed, the apprehension coiling tighter around my chest, and as the first crash hit the door, I felt an undeniable notion that our fragile sanctuary was about to be shattered once and for all. The world around me felt like it vanished into a blur, swallowed by the chaos that threatened to eclipse every ounce of hope I had managed to claw from the previous hours. My heart raced as I pressed closer to Christine and Liam, their presence anchoring me amid the rising tempest of uncertainty. The moment I had dreaded most was now upon us, and just when I thought we were beginning to emerge from the shadows, a new darkness loomed before us. "Stay quiet," I urged, enveloping them with a sense of resolution as we crouched together in the confined space. I could hear the muffled sounds of shouts outside, the distant echoes of uncertainty inching closer with each passing second. Tremors danced through my fingers, gripping Liam's slight shoulder gently, urging him to stay still. Christina's eyes darted around the dimly lit room filled with remnants of our lives, and in that instant, I saw fear. Deep, raw fear that clawed at her heart, tearing the fragile veil of strength she had worn so bravely. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her we would be okay, but I felt the weight of that promise hang heavily in the air, tethered by unseen threads. What had we done to find ourselves here? That thought pulsed through my mind like a drumbeat, unrelenting yet bearing no real answer. The chaotic clamor from outside intensified, and suddenly it all snapped into focus, a reality I couldn't dodge, a truth I had never wanted to face. "I'm scared, Jacob," Liam whispered, his voice trembling and raw as it broke through the chaotic din. My heart ached. In that moment, my role pivoted. It wasn't just about protecting them. It was about comforting, lending strength where mine seemed to falter. "You're not alone," I reassured him, my voice steady, even as my insides churned with worry. "We're going to face this together. No matter what." My words hung in the air, wrapped in a warmth I hoped would seep into him. I turned to Christine. "We've got each other. No one can tear that apart." The sudden crash of the front door reverberated against the walls with a startling force. We exchanged panicked glances, hearts racing in unison, a primal instinct taking hold as the unknown stood poised to shatter our fragile bond. As the chaos ensued, the looming request surged through me, urge to uncover every hidden truth, to sift through every thread of the past that brought us to this moment. And then, silence. The kind that stretched unnaturally long, the absence of sound thick with tension. I dared to release the breath I was holding, my mind whirling with speculations. Was the arrival of the man from earlier going to create a breach, or was it something different entirely? As if my thoughts had summoned a force of fate, he stood in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the muted light of the outside world. As his eyes found mine, an unsettling rush of familiarity surged between us, mingling with an undercurrent of dread. But then, that familiar unease bore truth not just from my past, but from the very fabric of Liam's existence, Jacob. His voice slithered through the charged air, heavy with familiarity and yet laced with an unyielding darkness. "You need to listen." I stepped forward on instinct, protective instinct drawing me up on guard. "Stay back," I commanded, my voice firm, though a storm of emotions roiled beneath. "Enough," he shouted, seething against the ramifications unfurling between us. "There's no time. They're coming for you. For your family." Christine trembled slightly, her strength crackling against the fairness of the situation. "What do you mean?" She finally spoke, her voice now containing a tight edge that mirrored my own growing frustration. "What are you doing here?" His eyes flickered to Liam, and dread filled the air like an ongoing symphony of terror. "They know everything," he said, voice strained with the weight of unspoken history. "About you, and about him." Liam looked between us, confusion and fear warring across his features. "What do you mean? What's happening?" Time refracted around us, truth weaved in and out, and as I gripped the reality of the moment, the knowledge seeped into my bones. The thing we feared most, the very truth that spurred us forward yet held us captive, was crashing in like a wave determined to drown us. "That I didn't come here to threaten, I came to warn you," he continued, shoulders back, a rigid barrier against the storm of emotions surrounding us. "The secrets you've clung to, the ones meant to protect him, those are precisely what could tear you apart." Every word coated in darkness reverberated around the room, haunting each of us. I stepped closer, adrenaline surging through me. "What secrets?" I demanded, but just then, the sound of sirens sliced through the night, punctuating the air with ominous clarity. Panic exploded around us, shifting the environment entirely, shifting our focus away from the emotional turmoil swirling through those bare four walls. In the next instant, chaos erupted, the door flung wide, and shadows flooded the space, scrambling through our sanctuary and disrupting our tenuous moment of transparency. "Everyone down." Voices boomed, the command ringing against my ears like a gong. In the expanse of chaos, one person emerged in dazzling uniform, drawing closer, face taut with urgency. "We need Liam. Now." The urgency galvanized the fear thrumming in my veins. "You don't understand, you can't take him," I shouted, stepping protectively in front of Liam, feeling the gravity of the moment cave around us. Christine gripped his other side, her eyes wide with fear, but I felt the resolve within her ignite. "Stop!" she cried out, steadfast as she stood with Liam between us, the embodiment of our hearts wrapped in one small frame. "He's not a pawn in this. Well, protect him." The officer hesitated for a moment, each tense second striking like a hammer on an anvil, before a deep breath slid through them. "We're just trying to keep him safe, there's too much at stake." At that moment, a surge of courage rallied within me, igniting the embers of resolve forged throughout our journey. "You don't understand what he means to her," I began. "This is not about possession, it's about family, about love, about protecting what matters. You want to keep him safe, then help us find a way for him to stay safely with his mother." Christine clutched Liam closer, her expression simmering with the clarity of a mother who knew she would move mountains to protect her child. "You can't tear us apart." And there it was, the undeniable truth: family wasn't defined merely by circumstance, but by the bond we held against the turbulence that lay ahead. Love, fierce and unwavering, had guided us thus far, and together we would forge a new path. One that would support and defend Liam against the impending storm. That that critical moment, as everything hung in the breathless air, I took the only route available. I extended my hand. "Together, we will fight for him," I declared. "Together, we will shield him against the shadows that linger," and just like that, a decision was made. A promise forged beneath the weight of uncertainty, a promise to embrace honesty and connection, to nourish and unearth the truths that had long lay buried. With renewed determination, I met the officer's gaze. "If you're here to protect him, then help us protect each other." The air shifted, a current of understanding glittering in the tension held between us. The sirens outside began to fade, the chaos simmering down to a dull roar, and for the first time, it felt like we had a choice. "Very well," the officer relented, shifting their stance. The shadows of doubt and uncertainty began to unravel, transforming into the threads of possibility that stood before us. "But no T-sit will require you to open the doors you've hidden behind, to be willing to confront the pain wrapped in your secrets." With a sense of clarity enveloping us, I turned back to Christine and Liam, and I could see the realization dawning within their eyes: we were beginning to confront our truths. Together, side by side, our hearts united. "Let's choose courage together," I whispered, each word a gentle promise, ready to face whatever might come as long as we stood as one. In that moment, everything shifted, flooded by the warmth of newfound understanding. We may not have known what lay ahead, but I felt a ripple of hope surfacing the depths of our fears, bridging the chasm that had lingered between our hearts. And it was enough. As the shadows of the past finally began to fade, the world opened before us, and we were ready to reclaim our future, together. The night unfolded beneath the stars, breathing softly into our new beginning, with courage guiding our every step forward on this unpredictable journey. As I turned to glance at the three faces that mattered the most to me, I felt a chill run down my spine, not out of fear, but from the sheer power of what we would overcome. Together began today the start of healing and the resilience of love in its purest form. And in the soft kaleidoscope of that moment, obscured by pain yet blooming with hope, I knew we would emerge from this stronger than before, as family.